Ireland, the lush island nation, full of green pastures, stunning coastline, and convivial locals. Irish monks, using Middle Eastern technology, created a beverage which took the world by storm: whiskey. But just like the country's infamous weather, things became stormy for local distilleries. Once they ruled the world, but shortly almost disappeared entirely. In this food unknown adventure, I will traverse the nation's scenic and sketchy roads. My objective? Learn the extraordinary story of the rise, fall, and resurgence of Ireland's distilleries and the world's most nuanced drink. A tale which intertwines with one of the most horrific agricultural disasters in European history. Along the way, I'll explore pub culture and the nation's underappreciated cuisine, with a few stops to herd sheep and drink ancient Viagra. Here we go! Our world is full of fascinating dishes, culturally important, rich in stories. But only a few have seen the limelight. I'm Jonathan Legg, and in this series, I'm focusing my travels around the world's most underappreciated cuisines.
Oh my God.
Have they failed to market? Are they about to emerge? Or are they just plain bad? It will be a global journey of pleasant surprises, dangerous mishaps, and stunning locations. On a quest to uncover food unknown. Dublin, Ireland's capital city. The roads hum with traffic and the sidewalks perpetually bustle. A quick duck into one of the city's ubiquitous pubs offers serene respite, best enjoyed with one of Ireland's most renowned beers.
This is a classic Irish pub, open for about 200 years. Now I have to wait a minute for my Guinness to settle. It's not proper to drink it until it turns completely dark.
But the quiet of a daytime pub is shadowed completely by the silence of these streets, in a neighborhood built on the dead. 37 distilleries once thrived here. They created a drink invented by monks who brought back perfume technology from the Middle East and accidentally created a boozy sensation.
Whiskey was originally called Ishkabaha, which translates into water of life. Underneath these buildings around me are hundreds of bodies, dead from the Black Plague. The monks tried to cure them with whiskey. And if you think about it, having a couple whiskeys sort of makes you lively, so it explains why they thought maybe this could bring somebody back to life. Unfortunately, it didn't work.
But it did work as a sophisticated drink that took the world by storm. Whiskey was an international success. So, where are all the distilleries? There is just one, newly reopened Teeling, with roots that go back to 1782. Inside, 3 handcrafted copper stills anchor down the modern facility. But, what do I know? Very little.
I'm gonna sound like a real knucklehead, but I don't even know how whiskey's made. It's made with barley, right?
Well, Irish whiskey is made with barley. American bourbons are made with corn. So here we have only 3 ingredients: barley, yeast, and water. So the water is right underneath us, and then we drill it up from underneath.
Okay.
So then the barley, then we have 2 different types, which is known as the unmalted, which is taken straight from the ground, and then the malted barley.
Okay, I got it. So Irish whiskey is made with barley, some of which is just raw, and some of which is malted, which means you've tricked it into thinking it's planted and is germinating.
Exactly.
Farther down, it's time to get my whistle wet.
So this is the liquid that comes out of the last still. So here in Ireland it's called poitín. So this is 82% alcohol.
82%.
Do you want to sip?
I'll have a little swig of this. Now this is the ancestor to all whiskey, that the Irish invented.
Exactly.
How about that?
Smooth?
Smooth.
And then it becomes time to seriously get my whistle wet.
American, Scottish, Irish.
So we're going to compare the three.
Okay.
I try the American bourbon, which is a bit perfumey because it's made of 100% corn. Next up is the Scotch.
This smells very, very smoky. It's a completely more smokier smell than the Irish or the American bourbon. The reason why is because of the malted barley. Plus, they only distill twice. So again, they're not as smooth or as pure as the Irish whiskies would be.
Gotcha.
So do you want to try the Teelings again in the middle?
Yeah, let me go back to the one in the middle. Holy cannoli. That's smooth like George Clooney in a Maserati. Wait a second now. The Irish invented whiskey. You had a huge share of the market.
Yes.
But I'll be honest with you, when I think of good whiskey, high class, I think Scotch. People around me think Scotch. What happened?
Now the reason was we had a lot of historical difficulties. But now whiskey is growing. The reason why is you might have heard the new thing out nowadays is to be hipster. So the hipsters are bringing the Irish whiskey back.
Well, that was amazing. Thanks a lot.
Got it. Hope you enjoyed it.
I leave Teeling feeling like a man who's seen the light. And I'm not even a hipster. Suddenly, I'm in love with whiskey, and I'm deeply intrigued with the mystery of Ireland's distillery collapse. Ireland is smaller than my home state of Illinois, but 200 years ago, they had hundreds of distilleries. By the 1970s, they had only 2.
Monks, bringing technology back from the Middle East, invented whiskey in Ireland. And although that technology spread, Ireland held the lion's share of the market for ages. They wore the crown, but then they lost the crown to Scotland. What happened? And are they in the position now to get that title back? Are they a contender? To get the whole story, I have to see the whole country. And the best way to do that in Ireland, if it's not raining, is on a bike.
Now, I'd like to consider myself as a man's man who knows how to ride a bike. I took a Royal Enfield over the Himalayas, and I tore through California's Thunderhill on a Yamaha R1. But it's been a solid year since I've been on one, and that was a little tiny Honda Wave I puttered around in Cambodia. A slightly more meager animal than this tall and heavy brute. Irish roads are notoriously tricky.
These roads here in backcountry Ireland are beautiful, but they're a little tricky, super narrow. And on the side, you've just got briars and rocks, and it's really muddy and slippery. Cars will come around the corner just like that. I'm not so worried about the locals. I figure they've got a system worked out, or else they'd be in the hospital every week. But tourists back here, they might come around a little too fast, hogging the road. This is a big, heavy bike. If it gets going in the wrong direction, it could be trouble for me.
But I must carry on. I have a date with another distillery which has also risen from the dead. On the way out, I stopped for lunch in the town of Kilkenny, famous for its spectacular castle and dominant hurling team. Hurling is that stadium-filling national sport you never heard of, promoted as the oldest and fastest field game in the world, where rugged athletes clash with minimal protection. Here, Kilkenny hurling legend and coach PJ Lanigan took a moment to run me through a few basics, and then invited me to his pub that serves up exactly what you'd expect.
Irish stew with lamb. That's traditional.
Chocolate Guinness goodness.
I like the sound of that, Guinness goodness. I'm going all kinds of Guinness crazy here. This Irish stew dates way back. Very traditional dish, used to be cooked in a big black pot. It was kind of like when you'd scrap all your leftovers together. You'd cut up the little bit of meat you had so that everybody in the family could get a little nibber nabber. That hits the spot after a good match of hurling. Not too spectacular on any direction, not spicy, just a little salty, not bland. Kind of strikes that middle road, but just good, honest grub you want to fill up on. Power up for another full day of sporting activity.
From Kilkenny, I travel up to Tullamore. On the outskirts, a brand new, state-of-the-art distillery, resurrected like Lazarus after 60 years gone. This 35 million euro facility features stills that weigh 20 metric tons and an eye-catching triangular spirit safe, symbolic of their whiskey's signature power of 3: triple distilled, triple blended, and triple casked. To get a taste of their award-winning drink, I head to the visitor center on the other end of town.
Some people say you should always drink your whiskey neat. They religiously stick to that. Some people say, no, you need to add water, open up the flavor. Other people add ice. I'm not sure how to drink my whiskey.
It's a question I get asked an awful lot doing this job. Well, really it's up to yourself. Here I'm going to pour you 3 whiskies. Now, some of the purists will tell us that it comes like this out of the bottle, and that's the way we should drink it.
Right.
A lot of the younger people will add a little bit of ice to their whiskey, which would chill it, as well as dilute it a little bit. And here, you can see when we add a little bit of water to it, it opens up those natural oils that are in the whiskey.
Oh yeah, I can see it doing something there. You mind if I dive in here?
Absolutely, work away.
Wow. First off, that's an excellent whiskey, very smooth. Not the way I drink it at a club, but you're right. If I was having a chat with a friend, we sat down with a bottle and we said, let's savor this, catch up. That's how I drink it. This is with the water. It's a little counterintuitive because you'd think taking it straight out of the bottle would be the strongest impact, and diluting it would weaken it, but it's quite the opposite. Equally good, but there you've got a little refreshment in the mix.
Exactly what you want when you're in a nice warm bar or even in a club.
Right. Absolutely. Maybe slow you down a little bit.
And also, of course, the water from the ice would again open up those flavors as well as chill it.
Good point. Well, I'd have to say now, after careful examination, I'd be either on this end or that end. I'd either be a straight out of the bottle guy or with the ice if I was in a social situation.
Well, that's the thing about whiskey, is that we're all very different. For me, I'd add a little bit of water. But again, we're all very different, and that's what makes whiskey interesting.
With the suggestion dropped, Shane runs me through a unique selection of cocktails.
We're going to make a drink called the 11s. Now, it's called the 11s, representing what we'd have at 11 o'clock in the morning. You'd have your breakfast tea, you might even have a scone with some raspberry jam or maybe even a jam sandwich. So this is a cocktail to represent that. So we call it the 11s. A little bit of ice to our glass to cool it down. And we'll add some Tullamore Dew, a 50ml shot. Some cold breakfast tea, a 25ml bitter lemon, and some raspberry jam. A bit of a shake.
Look at that, the 11s.
The 11s. Perfect for 11 a.m. or for me, 11 p.m.
Oh yeah. You know, this is the perfect Sunday, fun day, hair of the dog that bit you kind of drink.
Absolutely.
You've had a hard Saturday night, you wake up late, you meet your buddies for some brunch, that's on the menu.
Perfect.
For sure. Ultimate brunch cocktail. The 11s, aptly named.
My whiskey knowledge is growing, but so is my confusion. How could a whiskey this smooth and nuanced almost disappear from the planet? As I leave for the Dingle Peninsula, a story of horrible luck and hardship will soon emerge, beginning with an epic disaster which bled Ireland of a quarter of its population. I'm Jonathan Legg on a food unknown adventure through the lush island nation of Ireland. A superb whiskey tasting in Dublin led me to wonder, what happened to all the Irish distilleries? Moreover, are the resurgent and the resilient ones any good? To answer that question, I mounted a top-notch touring bike and then headed up to newly reopened Tullamore Dew facility, where I learned a few different ways to drink and mix Ireland's homegrown drink. Now my journey heads towards the Dingle Peninsula, lashing out into the Atlantic like a dragon's tongue. But I'll take the long route to briefly explore a few curiosities in the mysterious land known as the Burren. The ride through the cold, misty morning eventually leads me to the site of something ancient and mystical, a Neolithic tomb which predates the pyramids of Giza.
Although as many as 33 people are probably buried underneath those stones, there's really nothing scary about it. However, the spookiest day of the year originated right in this land.
Our modern-day festival of Halloween began with the Celtic Samhain, denoting the end of the harvest and the coming darker half of the year. Farther down the road, I approached the fabulous Irish coastline. While many tourists flock to this area, they miss a fascinating stop right under their noses.
This obelisk commemorates what's now known as St. Bridget's Well, but don't let the rebranding fool you. Long before the Christians, it was a pagan site dedicated to the Celtic goddess of fertility.
Around the corner, I find its subterranean entrance.
Look at this. Pagan wells are scattered all over Ireland, their waters containing sometimes elixir-like powers. Perhaps thousands and thousands of years before Pfizer, this was the little blue pill.
Invigorated by the magical water, I prepare to cross the mouth of Shannon, a shortcut down to Dingle.
Just leaving Clare on my way to the Dingle Peninsula. Everybody really talked up Clare, and it was nice, but maybe it had something to do with the weather, just drizzly the whole time, which can happen in Ireland. But it's funny how these little things can affect your whole impression of a place. Well, let's see what the conditions are like in Dingle. I'm looking forward to it. Low expectations, high hopes.
Once in Dingle, I head straight for Dingle Cookery in town proper, where Mark and Murian have stayed open late to accommodate my arrival.
I came here because, I'll be honest with you, when it comes to Irish food, I never think about it unless I'm in an Irish pub and I get hungry and I say, oh, you got a menu? What's it? You guys serve food here? So I'm a complete ignoramus, but I hear this is the spot, and I hear on this peninsula you serve your own unique style of food.
We've got such access to great fish and shellfish, and as well as that, just the lamb. The amount of lamb here is just fantastic.
Are we gonna put that lamb in today's meal?
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to make a traditional dish, especially from this area. It would have been known as a dingle pie.
Is there something special about Dingle lamb? Is the meat quality renowned? People say it's different here than in other parts of the country?
Especially in the winter time, you have storms coming in from every side. It's only 8 miles at the furthest point of the peninsula. So that leaves a slight salty texture in the grass itself. So the animal is eating this. So yeah, and even the structure of the meat, it's quite unique. We've taken that lamb and we've cooked it nice and slowly, really, really slowly. And what I've done is we've just put a little modern twist to it. We've added onion in there and a little bit of carrot, a little bit of celery. It just brings out a little more flavour. I've made some pastry, nice soft pastry.
Oh yeah.
Now all we need to do is we're just going to pop those guys in there like that. And we're going to put some of our filling.
You said you put a modern twist on this. I'm curious, how would you describe Irish food as it was traditionally, and how are you and the new generation of chefs changing it?
In the last probably 15, 20 years, we're really concentrating on the ingredients we have, and we've incredible ingredients here. If you think of our grass-fed beef, our lamb, our fish, our shellfish, and just we've incredible producers. But we also have an incredible history of Irish food dating back 7,000 years. And it's basically all the different settlers we have had here, whether it's the Celts, whether it's the monks coming here, whether it's the Vikings, the Normans, the Spanish. A lot of Spanish came here to Dingle. We had the English. And every one of those have changed our food itself. We will just give a little bit of egg wash. And this is like a glue. This just helps to glue those in there. We just again take our pastry lid, little vent in here. That just helps to release some of the steam. Okay, so we've now just taken them out of the oven and 10-15 minutes in the oven. That's all we needed. And now to serve them, we're just going to get some of our broth. You can even smell the flavours, fantastic flavours from the bones and just from just a few vegetables. That was simmering for quite a while. And you have to remember back in the olden days, this was put over an open fire, just literally left simmering there while they maybe went out to the fields to work, or they were maybe fishing or whatever it was. And now, there you go. So, beautiful dingle pie.
I see what you're saying about the mutton. The texture is unique, and there's a very special flavor to it. It's unlike any mutton I've had before. I can't quite put my finger on it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
After a long motorcycle trip, plowing through the cold air and the various storm cells that blow through this island, that's exactly what you want.
The next morning, I decide to take a spin around the iconic tip of the peninsula, where steep cliffs and rolling grass plunge into the dark blue Atlantic.
Whoa, beautiful out here. This is actually a very popular spot for tourists, but you'll notice nobody's around. I got the road to myself. Why is that? Because every tourist wants to eat their hotel breakfast. Hotel breakfast is from 8 to 10. You get up before 8, go see the popular sites, come back, catch the tail end, while they all go en masse to see the same thing that you saw alone.
Now, my goal here is to end up at the newly opened Dingle distillery, but like all respectable travel, my journey becomes sidetracked by sheep. This man is a sheep herder who I've just met on the roadside. Way out there is his herd of sheep, and beside him, 2 kinds of herding dogs.
That's the classic herder.
Yeah.
And this dog is called a creeper.
The creeper, yeah. If you go to competitions and sheep competitions, this is the type of dog you'll see. Like, you never see this type of dog.
Yeah, you can clearly see the difference. This one is all sneaking around. Yeah, and this dog is just move. Yeah.
That's right, yeah, that's it. Now you have it.
Wow. It's amazing watching this dog attentively listening to his master and then subtly moving this herd of sheep towards this pen. All right, we've seen the 2 types of dog in action. The creeper type, which is Buzz, and the dominant type, which is Captain. using their combined powers, we're gonna see if we can get some of those sheep in this pen.
We don't like you. Lay down, Captain.
Wow. You can see the sheep just like, okay, what's the next move? It's a very delicate process between the two dogs to get them into this pen.
Captain, sit down. Sit down.
Captain's stubborn. This one is eager to please Buzz.
Sit. Captain, sit. Captain, bueno, sit down. Lie down.
Oh! You did it!
Just about. Thank you.
Good job, wow.
Since we're making friendly like, I throw the herder a challenge.
Two dogs with simple words and whistles can get these sheep in there, then surely a Homo sapien with good instruction can do the same thing, right?
That's it, yeah, using his intuition.
Big pint of Guinness
Big
if
pint
I
of
can get the
Guinness.
sheep in this pen.
That's the deal, boy.
All right, it's on.
All right.
Okay. This is me. Back off. Back in the thing. That way. That way. There we go. Hup. 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 It looked promising for a minute, but everybody's got their specialty. And I suppose sheep herding is not mine. If I only had the whistle commands, I could have done it.
My confidence in sheep herding has been shattered. But I do have a growing self-assurance in my whiskey knowledge, which I now hope to bolster down the road as I arrive at the Dingle Distillery. Founded in an old sawmill in 2012, Dingle has a bustling environment, the trademark 3 stills of Irish whiskey, and heaps of full casks. But curiously, I can't buy a bottle.
In America, it's imperative to always use new casks. In Ireland, it's imperative to never use new casks. So a deal kind of worked out because this one is from America where they could only use it once. They sent it over here. Apparently it contained bourbon from Kentucky, and now it's holding their Irish whiskey. Over here you've got sherry, which probably came from Spain, and in this one, port, which came from Portugal. And the flavor of that old alcohol soaked into the wood gives nuance to the new whiskey that's going to come out of here.
Serendipitously, I meet master whiskey distiller John McDougall, who drops some knowledge.
I mean, also in a place like Dingle, it's a microclimate. So what you have here is you're in the Gulf Stream, and the Gulf Stream, of course, is much more mild. It's more, you say, damp, moist, humidified, if you like.
And it's consistent.
And it's consistent. It's consistent.
That's the most important bedrock is good water.
And cask selection. And climate.
And climate.
And climate.
I gotcha. So how do you produce one consistent Dingle whiskey taste?
Your core product must come from a particular type of cask. That will be from ex-bourbon.
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 So you're a master distiller, right?
Yeah.
That means you can dip your pinky in any whiskey, put it in your mouth, and you can tell a myriad of things about it.
I would rather take a small glass and nose it, and I can tell from my nose whether or not I like it or I don't like it.
You got the $1 million nose.
I wish I had.
All these casks of whiskey, 3 huge working stills, still haven't sold a drop of whiskey. Wait, how have they been floating their boat for over 2 years? Remember local law. It's not Irish whiskey unless it's 3 years and 1 day old. So they have a little still in the corner that's making gin and vodka until the whiskey is of age.
With Dingle Distillery behind me, it's time to leave the peninsula. But I'll make one little stop to grab a quick cold one at a pub founded by Ireland's own Antarctic explorer, Tom Crean.
You know, going to Antarctica this year was a little bit like slotting an ace of spades into my adventure card pack. Talking to other travelers, oh, you went to Costa Rica? Right on. Been to Spain? Good for you. Me? I went to Antarctica on an oil rig. But to a guy like Tom Crean, that's absolute cream puff stuff, like a 3 of hearts. Oh, you went to Antarctica. You had an ice belt. You had 3 hot meals a day. Had internet. Could get a cup of hot chocolate anytime you want. Good for you, kid. That's cute.
I leave the pub, but just before I leave Dingle, I spot something near the small town of Camp. Here I find another mystery, hiding under a thick canopy of green. A hamlet, abandoned and reclaimed by the forest.
What happened to this village happened all over the country. Ireland lost a quarter of its population. The people in this village either died or fled looking for food in a time known as the famine. Have you ever had a really bad landlord? Back then, they were horrendous. While this famine was ravaging the country, they all demanded full rent. If somebody couldn't pay, quite often they would stick a crowbar-like device into their poor ramshackle stone huts, prying loose one rock. And when that rock fell, the whole thing crumbled.
Suddenly, I'm fascinated by this story. A tale that was almost never told, but for one loose link, all the way up in Strokestown.
Imagine this. There's a catastrophe in your town. All the food is wiped out. Now you're living paycheck to paycheck and providing for a small family. How many days go by before you turn the knob on your neighbor's apartment, see if it's open? You saw some bread on the counter through the window. How about 7 days go by? Your kids are looking up at you with hungry eyes. Would you be tempted to kick down that door, push him to the couch, and just take the bread? You're a have-not. Now let's put the shoe on the other foot. You have plenty of food, tons of supplies. You're rich. People are coming to your door. What do? This really happened in Ireland. And this is the home of one of the haves.
Inside the opulent mansion, a spacious kitchen where servants would have cooked, and several grandiose rooms.
Look at this place. Perfectly preserved. This would have been one of the estate owners, one of the haves during the famine. Now these were the only guys to keep records. The poor didn't have means to do that. And conveniently, all those records have been expunged from history. But this estate owner was shot one day as he walked into town, possibly by one of the hundreds of people that he evicted. So he didn't have a chance to get rid of his records. And from those, we know exactly what happened.
What was found here established the adjacent Famine Museum, curated by the affable John O'Driscoll.
So you've built this museum based on what you found in the archives. How did Ireland handle the famine, the crisis?
Yeah, the mismanagement really, a bit of a disaster. When you think 1 million died, 1 million emigrated, more we believe in cases. These people needed so much help, but yet they weren't getting it.
John walks me through the dead man's estate, blooming spectacularly, but laced with a dark history.
Look at this. We've come to the edge of this massive estate garden, which wouldn't have been full of flowers, but rather produce, fruits and vegetables. In fact, the deceased landlord probably had enough food to feed the entire town, but he never did.
And on the edge of the property, we find the world's most villainous starch.
So this is it.
Yep, this is the lumper potato, the variety that was eaten by the poorer classes coming up to and during the Great Irish Famine. You can see actually when we're looking at this one, it has been infected, potato blight, Phytophthora infestans. And it's interesting, we grow this old variety in amongst all of the other newer varieties, and nearly every year the lumper potato will get potato blight. It has no blight resistance at all.
So it's a very fragile crop.
Very much so. This is all they had to eat, and it had no resistance to this disease.
They didn't have other crops planted?
No, they were growing potatoes to feed themselves. They were selling to raise the money to pay the rent. It was not for them to eat. They had to sell it.
The poor had one food, and when it went bad,
And that was it.
they were doomed.
They were doomed.
Once seen, the signs of famine appear everywhere. As I leave the estate to continue my route along the coast, I arrived in the pleasant town of Skibbereen. On the outskirts, a large field in this cemetery is in fact a massive grave full of countless souls. As for me, I must push back on the culinary trail, leaving a time of desperation to a place of bounty. This is the scenic Ballymaloe Cookery School, which is also a 100-acre organic farm. It's out here, by the cows, that I meet celebrity chef Rachel Allen. Back inside, Rachel has promised to cook up something that utilizes the farm's resources and also ties in with the Halloween tradition.
Potatoes are looking good. What have we got in the sausage?
In here, these are pork sausages. So minced pork, some chopped herbs. In here, there's parsley, marjoram, and some thyme.
Now tell me about the butter. I usually cook stuff in oil. It seems to me like an old school thing to cook stuff in butter.
Yeah, and it just gives the best flavor.
Does it?
Really good flavor. It also gives really good color. You see how butter starts to, it's almost like it's caramelizing here. It gives great flavor.
Yeah.
The potatoes are for the Kilcannon. So when the cows are milked,
Right, we
you
did
saw
that.
the milk coming in, and then, as always happens with milk, the cream rises to the top.
You skim that off.
That is taken off, and then that is put into this here. You
Voila.
can see it's really nice. And I'm going to put it on to whisk. Separate it completely.
Right. You've got a liquid in the bottom, and then is that the butter?
That's butter. Yeah, that's basically it. And this down here is buttermilk. So
That's what buttermilk
that's
is.
what buttermilk is, the byproduct of making butter.
Today's buttermilk is not the buttermilk of yesteryear.
Exactly. And that's it. That's butter. So then you can roll it up if you like, or you can just serve it like this. Serve it however you like. You can make a little roll. Put it into the fridge, and so you can roll it up
All
like
right.
like
Just like this, like a.
Christmas cracker or something, and roll it quite tightly actually.
I'm not so good at rolling things. Something my buddies in Venice Beach always point out.
You can take that with you.
That would be nice. I just throw it
On
in
the
my
back
pocket.
of the bike.
You think that'll get through the scanner in the airport?
I'm not going to say.
Get down the pat down.
Kilcannon is one of these. It's a traditional Irish potato dish.
Mm-hmm.
And before, or many years ago, cabbage would be cooked for hours. When it's boiled for a long time, it's really not great. Go into the cabbage. So a little bit of salt there, some pepper. And I'm just going to cook the cabbage. It'll just take about 3 or 4 minutes. The potatoes are being peeled and mashed in the back here, so I'll go and get them, and this can just cook for a few more seconds. And then I'm just going to put the cabbage and some milk, hot milk.
That's done, huh?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Done?
Done.
Sounds like there's still a tiny bit of a bite.
I like a little crunch in it.
Yeah.
Rachel, you're an authority on Irish food. Let me ask you this. I always go out to drink Irish, but never to eat Irish. The only time I eat Irish is after I've drank Irish. And then I don't remember what I ate. Why is it that nobody goes out exclusively just to eat Irish food?
You know, I think Irish food has a bit of a bad reputation, doesn't it? We're probably known for overcooked cabbage, that myth I'm trying to dispel right here. Really quite simple, almost peasant food. Mm-hmm. But when these dishes are done well, they're really good, like Irish stew, like bacon and cabbage. But Irish food now, I think more modern Irish food has just become very produce-led. So it's about the really good dairy, the really good meat. We're an island, so we have amazing seafood. The cold Atlantic Sea gives us really, really good, sweet, incredible seafood. So I think it's more produce-led, as little done to it as possible, and I think that's just when it's best.
This is it then. Used in the old days for purposes of marriage divination around Halloween. So they say if you found a ring inside it, you were gonna get married within the year. If you found a thimble, you'd be a spinster.
Yeah.
And a coin, you'd be rich.
Yeah.
And a stick, you'd be beaten.
I bite down on no metal nor wood. Nothing but good, honest grub.
I never think much about cabbage, but that is good. It is true.
You know,
I was right. Ireland and cabbage go hand in hand. I don't think I'd want to eat cabbage anywhere else, but here, with this butter, boom.
And there's your butter to take home.
Oh yeah. I'll put it in with a bunch of dirty socks. Customs will never know. Throw it in with the dirty socks and underwear.
Saying goodbye to Rachel, I head off to find the final piece of the whiskey puzzle. A distillery giant who survived through the worst of times and now has it all on record in an official archive hall. Back on the road, I make my way to the final destination. In a little town called Middleton, the world's most resilient distillery chugs away. A place you may know by their signature brand, Jameson. Middleton is a massive complex, capable of producing nearly 65 million liters of whiskey and providing heaps of tourists with an informative and entertaining experience. But what I'm looking for is at the heart, in a small building dedicated to archiving whiskey history. Here, archivist Carol Quinn shows me some rare gems, including logbooks from the old distillers and brochures from the whiskey exhibits at the 1893 World's Fair. But what I came for is the definitive answer to Ireland's bad booze luck.
So business was booming.
Business was absolutely booming. They could not make the whiskey quick enough for the demand.
Then let me ask you this. The Irish invented whiskey.
Yes.
They owned the whiskey market.
They did.
They, like Rocky, suffered through several blows. The famine, plop, kept coming.
Yeah.
The abstinence pledge, plop, they kept coming.
Yeah.
But then somehow they stumbled after that.
Yeah.
And they lost the crown to Scotland. Because now if you ask just the general public, where does high quality whiskey from, they say Scotland.
Yeah.
How did Ireland lose the crown?
Prohibition was such a big thing.
The American Prohibition.
The American Prohibition. First of all, it had an economic effect on the Irish distilleries. We lost one of our biggest markets straight away. So the knock-on effect of that was that finances were tight back in Ireland. The issue was that during Prohibition in America, there was still the taste for alcohol, and you had the rise of the bootlegger. And what the bootlegger did is it invented this alternative Irish whiskey, calling it Irish whiskey, and it was nothing but moonshine or rotgut. So the issue was that sometimes a person's first taste of Irish whiskey was not the real thing. It was this rotgut. And they associated that horrible, horrible taste with Irish whiskey, which it was nothing like whatsoever. So by the time Prohibition finished, there was this idea in the American mind that Irish whiskey was not flavoursome, was not palatable, and they switched to Scotch.
Now I know. American Prohibition. I have my answer, but I'd be remiss to not taste some of this whiskey before I leave, especially in this classy room with whiskey ambassador David McCabe to talk me through it.
There's a few things to look for when you're nosing a whiskey and tasting it. So first is what whiskies, like what different styles are there. So you have single malts, you have single pot stills, you have grain whiskey, and if they're combined you have blended whiskies.
And one last time, I get to run through an amazing gamut of whiskey.
So on the left of the mat is Redbreast, so that guy there. It's a 12-year-old whiskey, so whenever you see an age statement on a label, like what you have here, it means that of all the barrels of whiskies married together to give you this particular bottle, the youngest whiskey was aged for a minimum 12. So if you want to pick it up and give it a nose, see what you think.
It's very fruity.
Yeah.
I can see where the Christmas cake analogy comes in.
Yeah, no, it's very apt for the Redbreast.
Wow.
So quite full-bodied, quite robust.
Despite that, it's very sweet and smooth.
Yeah.
I've never had that before, and I'm a fan. Redbreast.
Okay, so sweet on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
You might get a little touch of clove as well in terms of spice.
I'm noticing a theme here of smoothness.
Yeah.
Smoothability.
And a lot of that can be down to your triple distilling.
And it's something I don't associate with whiskey in general. My previous conception of whiskey is something you either mixed it and it was smooth, or you took it straight and you had to gut it out like a man.
This is Middleton Barry Crockett Legacy. Again, it's 46% in terms of alcohol content. And if you want to give it a nose.
You can tell just from the nose that this one is stronger.
Yeah, you might get more of a spiciness in terms of aroma, which sounds unusual, but a bit more even slightly peppery almost, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to give it a taste, see what you think.
Wow, I like it. That flavor just kind of cruises slowly over your tongue. I feel like I've gone to church and been baptized. I feel enlightened.
There you go.
One final question.
Yeah.
If Coca-Cola and soft drinks are pop music and beer is rock and roll, what's whiskey?
I think it's a symphony.
A symphony. Nice answer. Cheers. Thanks for your time.
No problem. Pleasure.
I heard the gospel at Teeling's, came to the altar at Tullamore, was baptized at Dingle, and now at Middleton, I finally see the light. Ireland has been a wonder all around. Gorgeous scenery, cuisine that is nuanced by the healthy environment of the livestock, and fascinating sights abundantly scattered over the land. But it's the Irish themselves, good-natured and gregarious, that take the cake.
What a trip. I've seen the rise, the fall, and the return of Irish distilleries and their great whiskey. And I've learned that reliance on monoculture and a severe lack of compassion led to one of the country's greatest disasters. There's no razzle-dazzle here, but it's honest and it's fulfilling. A lot like a trip around the country itself, or a chat with an old friend and a glass of good whiskey.